Hi, folks. I'm Ilana. Welcome aboard Human in the Loop, your compass to the shifting tides of AI. Now, my co-host, Chris, who's usually the troublemaker, continues to be the troublemaker. He's on the train delayed, so it's going to be just me today. As a reminder, in this podcast, we unpacked what it really means to build trustworthy AI, why it matters, how it shapes products, and ultimately how we make sure that we do everything responsibly. And I'm really, really, really happy because I have a fantastic guest today, Meeri from Saidot. Meeri, thank you. First of all, can you please introduce yourself and say a little bit about Saidot?
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and thanks for the invitation. So my name is Meeri Haataja. I'm CEO and founder, also Chief Product Officer at Saidot. We are an AI governance SaaS company. I founded Saidot in 2018, so it's been 7 years of full focus on AI governance, helping enterprises and also government organizations on implementing AI governance and operationalizing responsible AI. So that's what I do at the moment. Before founding Saidot, my background is working with data scientists and AI teams. I practically that's been my career from the start. Started as an analyst in telecommunications, and then many years in consulting, implementing AI in large enterprises, and now here.
So you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, so to say, when it comes to AI implementations, I'm sure. And maybe that leads itself into my next question. How did Saidot come to be?
Feel some part of it is partially accident. My previous job before Saidot, I was in financial sector, working in OP Financial Group, where I went to lead the implementation of their new AI strategy. So practically operationalizing all the plans on taking into use AI across the organization, banking, insurance, wealth management. And then what happened is that there was GDPR coming, and I got this as a surprise on my own table, the responsibility to drive also the GDPR program, the implementation program, 2 years before the final transition times were over in EU at that time, and yeah, that shaped practically my whole 2 years in financial sector before starting Saidot. But at the same time, it was a big surprise. But then it offered an amazing platform to explore the emerging responsible AI, ethical AI domain. And I got really excited about the topic. Some events happened that opened my own eyes to recognize that I've been looking at AI development pretty narrowly. We had in financial industry one case in our region where a competitor got fined about a discriminative credit algorithm. And I think it was really important educational case for all of us in the industry that, okay, we need to look into this. These are the perspectives that probably no one had really dived into enough before that. So that acted as one of the triggers, and then the whole ethical AI domain started to emerge, and we started to hear situations and kind of incidents happening around the world. And I got really curious and excited about the topic, and also had the platform to try out experimenting responsible AI in practice.
I'm remembering the pre-GDPR days in the sense of, at the time I was actually part of the recruitment team, and GDPR was taking us by storm because it was absolutely reshaping how we were doing recruitment. And it, similar to you folks, I think it was a 2-year journey to revisit every single process we had, every single candidate interaction, how is data stored. And it was a real sense of this is coming and we need to be ready. And I think even the day everybody was just...
I remember even mapping all the IT system in a large organization. How many are there, and how many of those handle personal data? And
Yes.
yeah, it was a huge exercise. It really shaped the industry in Europe. So yeah, interesting.
I have another legislation question for you, but before we go there, I wanted to ask you because we touched base on responsible AI a little bit, and we were talking about ethics, and every single person I talk with has a different spin on it. So I'm curious of your take. For you, what is responsible AI?
My focus and my perspective to responsible AI is AI governance. So practically looking the enterprise perspective, how do we implement AI? How do we develop? What kind of processes we need in order to ensure that we use and develop AI in a responsible manner. From my perspective, the longer I am in this field, the more I think that it's about risk management.
Yeah.
So really understanding the risks broadly for the organization, for its stakeholders, customers, society wider, and then understanding the impact and probability of risk, and then mitigating the risks to an acceptable level. Personally, I think for a lot of enterprises at the moment, responsible AI is essentially about risk management, not trying to avoid all the risks, but being aware of the risks and then mitigating them into an acceptable level. But there is so much more in responsible AI broadly as a topic, and I, for example, one like small and very important angle to that is that it's always contextual and relates to the stakeholders that you are influencing, and responsible AI as a discipline also is challenged and tries to make those connections and find those ways of understanding the impact on various different stakeholders and taking their perspective into the development and use of AI-based technologies.
You've said something really interesting, and you're the first one who's articulating it such, and I feel like I'm resonating with it a lot. You're saying taking it to an acceptable risk. And that's the key word, acceptable. And I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks are um, a little bit conflicting of what we do with generative AI in specific because it's non-deterministic. So does that mean that we can get risk to be zero? Defects or risk is always going to be there, but having the awareness to your point of what type of risk can be present, what are the type of mitigations that I can do, and ultimately to understand what is the gap and continue to monitor that gap over time is where I find it's really important to, as an organization, to be clear on things. I'm going to go back to what you were saying to GDPR and governance and risk because it all ties into it. We have the UI Act, which in Europe is quite a big piece of legislation. I have found, and maybe this is just my perspective, but I found that the UI Act has been talked less than GDPR. I think with GDPR, there was a real sense of this is coming. I think with the UI Act, I've seen less of that. I'm curious, how are you seeing it with your clients, or are you seeing the same level of awareness, or are you feeling that things are a little bit slower in terms of the awareness of this body of legislation?
That's a really interesting to hear from you. I'm in such a bubble that it's really difficult to draw any kind of conclusions from that very bubbled perspective that I have on this, because we are very very focused on talking with folks who
Yeah.
are getting started preparing on this one. It's really hard for me to compare to GDPR. Maybe it is. Maybe it's also for the reason that it's even more focused on the enterprises, not the end users. GDPR introduced a lot of rights also for end users, consumers, and the owners of the personal data. So that was important part. So maybe there was more communication to the wide public about those rights, and maybe that influenced that. But so I see that there's been very much growing awareness about the EU AI Act, and also more generally AI related risks, especially as the generative AI has emerged, and now agents, and there are a lot of perspectives that are driving this risk awareness. But I sometimes do come across in these situations that I talk with person who I expect that they certainly know about it, and then they tell that they have heard it first time, like a couple of weeks ago, and there was a moment. So yeah, we still need to work on the awareness and understanding how does it influence the market and organizations. So definitely there's work to do still.
And there's an opportunity, right? I find that in the UI kind of, let's say, unbuckles what are the developers of the technology versus the deployers. And I think the developers, and speaking with the people who are developing models, who are developing systems that are AI based, there's definitely that awareness in terms of with the responsibilities. Where I'm spending a lot of time wanting people to understand is that they are considerations for the deployers of the technology as well. It's not just a matter of we just purchase this technology and that's it. That's where our what our liability finishes. And it's important, I think, for everybody to know and to think of holistically as a deployer, what are the things that are important? How do I support my workforce, for example, to understand the limitations of this technology and be able to use it appropriately? So it's interesting to see the evolution of those conversations.
I think it's a really important point, and definitely fully agree with you on that. Probably there is less awareness about the deployer responsibilities, and we really need to work on driving that or growing that awareness. We are mostly working with large organizations, but sometimes also with smaller organizations who are providing one or two AI products or features as part of their AI features as part of their product. So what I have seen over the past year is that more and more in the procurement processes, large organizations who are buying AI or like buying software and like, AI features or AI based products, they have started to really integrate these AI related questionnaires and analysis in their procurement processes. So definitely that has happened, and that is also an important driver for smaller organizations to make sure that they are ready to answer to those questions on how is this feature or product governed, and how do you ensure responsibility in the implementation and operations of those AI-based features and products.
When I speak with some organizations who are at the beginning of their journey and we talk about responsible AI, some of the perspective I get is this is a lot for us to digest. We are not sure where to start. As you've been working with these clients on these particular topics, what's your advice to them? What's your advice to your clients as you're starting the journey with them?
That's the question. Like it really varies depending on the type of and size of the organization. What I feel is good that regulations now are giving a very solid basis on what does good look like. So if we look back a few years, 5 or 7 years, we only had ethical principles as a guiding document. But now I think we are much further on this journey and maturity regarding what does it mean in practice. So you don't get too far with principles. You need to really start to think on a very operational, practical level. How does it land on developers' tables or like the people who are taking into use AI products? So and for that one, I think AI Act is operating in an important standard type of or standardizing the approach on that, and from there, I think really the core is that this, like, you need to think from risk-based perspective. So really the starting point is that being able to understand where AI is in your products, your services. So inventorying those AI based systems and tools, and then understanding their risk level, and then the governance should follow the risk level of the system. This is how AI Act, as one piece of regulation, approaches this, but that is what we recommend and what we see how also organizations without any regulative pressure think when they take this risk risk management perspective to AI governance. So first, you really need to understand the big picture on the risk level, and then have right-sized of governance requirements following that risk level.
And on the latter side, because you mentioned there are organizations where, the UX might not apply, or this is not a legislative body that they have to adhere to. What do you find is the intrinsic motivation for applying similar standards or AI governance when, let's say, they don't have to? It's a choice. I'm curious what is motivating their choice.
Yeah, I feel today it's at least a similar level of drive that is coming purely from business perspective, looking at business risk, and that is AI governance is essentially about managing your business risk, controlling the business risks that are related to AI specifically. So I think that's really good and positive driver and motivation for organizations to willingness to create value from AI, and make sure that through governance we are able to implement higher quality products, and also serve customers better. So ensuring that we can really provide high quality service also in the AI context for our customers and other stakeholders.
I resonate with that approach of responsible AI as being a business differentiator as well, and ensuring, it's risk management, absolutely. But it is also that you are making sure everything you do as an organization has that stamp, that label of whatever you want to call it, of high quality. And be it your own employees who are using that system, being your customers and stakeholders, it makes a difference, right? And I don't think there's a day that passes without us seeing some sort of post or article or you name it, where we have examples of either, AI fails, and I'm using that loosely, or some example of this was used in a wrong way. And ultimately, it boils down to that system was not measured and mitigated in ways to prevent that. And if it was, then you would have preserved the trust, you would have preserved the quality. But when those things are lacking, it also deteriorates trust over time. Responsible AI is a way of making sure that you are preserving trust, you are preserving the quality, and you are having that market differentiator. Can you share with us maybe some examples of projects or things that you can help organizations with?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, we are AI governance SaaS platform company. So our and the driver why I founded Saidot originally was to establish that partner and technology platform to help operationalize AI governance in scale. So ensuring that high quality AI governance is not just something that is left on papers or some kind of forms that you need to circulate in your organization, but it actually is supported with the modern technology to really implement and make it an integrated part of your development process. So we provide that one platform to really handle everything related to AI governance process, starting from inventorying your AI assets, whether it's systems, models, data sets. Now we have an agent catalog where you can inventory your AI agents. So really really happy to share and talk more about how AI governance platform can support the operationalization of AI in companies. We do some services as well. So oftentimes it's the situation is that there are no clear frameworks or processes in organizations. So while introducing a platform to support this, we often help a lot of customers also in establishing those standard-based frameworks on and management systems for AI governance, and putting in place all the right processes and capabilities to then efficiently, consistently run it across the whole organization.
Again, to your earlier point, principles and ethics in themselves, they're a great starting point, but they're not the whole story. So having those frameworks and the processes that are grounded in the same principles is what will ultimately drive that business impact that we're all looking to have.
Yeah, I started to think that something that we haven't touch upon a lot yet, but like the agents is really what makes the governance a real challenge, because scale that is what we see that introduces also scale, and that is also then when the question arises that you really need to have the right ways of handling this in order to be able to handle the scale of not only tens or hundreds of systems, but it can easily go in a large organization to thousands and thousands of AI-based systems that are increasingly autonomous. So I think this is a great moment to call for starting your AI governance journey, and if not yet started.
Yes. I was nodding along passionately to this because you're absolutely right. As we think of agents and the fact that agents they're going to be here to stay, and the fact that we're thinking of the autonomous aspects of them, and we're thinking of the additional risk that can apply there, and also mitigation, having that end-to-end view of orchestration, monitoring, developing, everything comes together. And I think in many ways, IT pros, developers, a lot of us, even end users, they're going to become agent managers. And I'm using air quotes when I say that, because suddenly you're going to have this fleet of agents that are reporting into you, and they're doing different jobs that you have to, one, not only from a development perspective, make sure they're developed correctly, but two, you have to monitor, because especially with agents, to make sure that you're having continuous monitoring, you make sure that there's no task drift, you make sure there's no sort of potential issues that appear. There's how are you monitoring against, attacks and jailbreaks, all the things that we know are part of security of agents as well.
Absolutely.
It's an area that is very interesting, and it's an area that I think people need to start off thinking about yesterday, because we're already seeing agents being deployed in organizations.
Absolutely, and I've even heard that some people are wondering, coming from a traditional governance processes perspective, and thinking that is this even possible to govern, or have we lost the game already? And my message is that it is possible, but really you need to look for automation, and you really need to focus on scalability of your governance approaches, because otherwise it will not be possible. So
And it takes every step of the company, right? Because it's not enough for, let's say, the traditional IT teams or development teams to have great, let's say, IT governance or AI governance or whatever we want to call it. Realistically, it's going to take everybody in the organization, from the CEO to the people who are not necessarily technical, but they're working with these tools. And there is absolutely democratization of the ability to create agents. How does that influence our AI governance? How do we make sure that we're aware of how many agents do we have? How many of them are active? And I heard a colleague of mine say something interesting the other day. They were doing an internal training, and they said, just because you can create an agent doesn't mean you need to. And even that sort of knowledge of, when should I create an agent? When is this a meaningful exercise and can help my work, as opposed to, yeah, it's cool, but it's not going to bring value. So as you were talking, the other thing that I was thinking about is this influences actually everybody in the organization.
absolutely, that's really, really interesting. You're right that even though everyone could be able to do agents, that doesn't mean we should. But then maybe my point of view on that one is that at this moment of time, I think everyone actually should, for the purpose of educating ourselves and growing literacy on this domain. That doesn't mean that every a single experiment needs to go to production and finally use, but in this moment of time, I think it's really good to encourage people to experiment, so that we learn and understand more. Also, not only the opportunities, but also how to control and govern and keep human in the loop in these implementations. But really, something that I've been what caught my attention, or on what you said, was really related to this possibility of every employee in an organization to be able to create agents. And that's actually something that is really radical from governance perspective. When I look at the introduction of generative AI and these tools like ChatGPT and like how that influenced the market, it's brought these individual tools and like enables generative AI to be used by every employee of an organization. But those were like single products, like in a limited number of products that are like individually governed then.
Absolutely. Natural language interfaces are certainly making that possible. And I agree with your point. Everybody should be experimenting. So if you're going to take one thing from today, we hope that you all go and experiment. Meeri, thank you. An absolute pleasure to get your thoughts and to get your expertise during today's podcast. Folks, if this topic is of interest, there's also an upcoming conference that the Center for Trustworthy AI is supporting, and that is the Brașov Forum, which is going to happen on the 7th to 9th of April in Brașov, Romania. The point of the conference is to really go deep into governance and technical concerns and legal in terms of trustworthy AI. So if you're interested, please go to aka.ms/TAI. And for today, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for being on board with us, Meeri. And we look forward to more conversations on AI you can trust, whether you're deploying at scale or navigating as a consumer. Until then, folks, stay in loop.